Welcome to episode 27, Construction Nation. This is Sue Dyer, your host of Construction Dream Team, where I interview industry leaders and experts so you can learn about the people side of construction and build your construction dream team based on OPE, other people's experiences. The shortest way to success is to learn from others who've already been there and done that. They already went through the school of hard knocks. So that's why we bring on all the best of the best here so that you can learn today what it took them decades to learn. And I also wanted to share with you that we have some news here at Construction Dream Team and OrgMetrics. Are you ever surprised by what's happening on your projects? I can't tell you how many sessions I go to, and in the meeting, like something comes up that everyone goes, I didn't know anything about that before I walked in this room. I should have known about this. Had that ever happened to you? Well, it happens all the time. And we use a tool that we call the Construction Scorecard. And we've used this for decades on thousands of projects. And it's a very accurate measure of what's actually going on your project so that your team can see, you can see, and everyone can communicate it. We also have an algorithm we've developed that calculates a momentum score. And this momentum score actually tells you whether you have positive momentum and how much, or whether you have negative momentum and how much. And these put together are a great predictor of what's going to happen on your project before it's happened so that you can take action. You can also see where you need to put your resources so that your project has a much better chance of having some extraordinary, exceptional outcomes. So we hope that those people who've been using it, we hear from them all the time how much they love it. And so for the first time, we're going to be doing a little beta test and offer the Construction Scorecard to other projects. And for 90 days between now and September 17th, if you sign up for the scorecard, you can get it. And we will then determine whether or not we think this is an effective way of using it and help the team members who are using it have success by using the scorecard. So if you're interested in that, please just email me at sue@constructiondreamteam.com and we can chat and we can get the scorecard going on your project. Well, today I'm so excited to have our guest today. I think he is really a great leader in our industry and always looking to create some innovations, which I think his company does as well. So Greg Mantz is with us today, and he is the project executive at DPR Construction. And DPR is always doing innovative things, as you guys probably see out in the industry. And Greg can tell you some more about these innovations that are occurring and the things that he's championed. So welcome, Greg, to Construction Dream Team.
Well, thanks, Sue. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
How about if you tell us a bit about your journey to becoming the project executive at DPR?
Well, sure, I'd be happy to. And I should suggest that I'm one of about 50 project execs here for DPR in the Bay Area. I joined on about 9 years ago. I sort of have a specialty case outside your typical construction expertise, if you will. But I come from about 35 years in the design business. Actually, a registered architect here in California and spent many years working with some of the recognizable design firms here in the Bay Area. My journey with DPR has gone back some 28 years. Many of the principals here at DPR were colleagues of mine back in the day where I would be serving as architect for a job that DPR was building. So I've had long experiences with the firm. But the path that actually brought me to DPR was actually quite interesting. At the tail end of my career with a previous firm, I'd been doing a lot of design build work, but on the design side, where I represented the architecture and engineering team as a part of a much larger effort. And during the 3 or 4 years that we were executing, it was actually a major design build job for Oakland Airport. There was something really missing in that team. There was something I was missing and not really having a face directly with the contractor that allowed me to communicate at the table. where we're having a hard time getting in front of the client ourselves. And it was just really a difficult task. But we started to recognize that this missing piece was this design management role. It's that personnel that could be put in a position of being able to really orchestrate the integration between the design function and the construction functions throughout the entire project lifecycle. And so I started to have conversations with a bunch of other contractors about the importance of this role. And it turns out, just literally by coincidence, DPR was actually looking for that person at the same time. So put two and two together, and I've been here now for 9 years, focusing specifically on building this design management capability internally.
That is very, very exciting. And I know we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. But I wanted to back up a little bit and talk about you as a leader, because so many of the people that listen to Construction Dream Team may be in the beginning or middle of their career and may not quite understand the path. So we know you've taken our journey. Tell us a little bit about what you think is your strength as a leader and what you see really works in order to lead teams of teams.
Yeah, no, it's a terrific question, and one that's really, really important. I think the role that I'm currently playing now puts me into the position where I really excel, and that's at sort of rallying the troops, focusing on the mission, and really trying to deliver effectively. It's I think my greatest strength is really the ability to get a bunch of disparate folks in a room and get them to rally to focus on a goal and moving to fruition. Ever since I was an architect leading teams in my career, I've always sort of really gotten excited about bringing people together, whether it's on a pursuit or in the delivery of a project, and just kind of getting everybody motivated to succeed. So I think that's always been my good strength.
Do you have any specific tricks of the trade you use for that?
Well, I think just like anything else, and you'll hear us talk a lot about it as we talk about integrated project delivery in general. But again, I think having the ability to be open in your communication and really trying to get everybody to understand our drivers, the key success factors on a job, get everybody to contribute to developing a mission statement for any particular project, that sort of thing. So again, I think it's just a matter of being really open and transparent with people and trying to get people moving in the same direction, if you will.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Easier said than done, huh?
Yes, it
is. So I understand that you are creating a design academy, kind of what you were talking about before. Mm-hmm. You're the design manager and trying to create more of this capability. This seems extremely interesting and also extremely timely as I watch integrated project delivery / progressive design build sort of emerge in the industry. A lot of the questions I hear, particularly from the designers, is who's going to be the design manager and how is that going to work? So tell us a little bit about what you're doing and what you see.
Well, specifically, I think what you stated there is exactly true. That's often the communication link between designers and contractors that breaks down. And I think one of our fundamental roles in this position is being able to break down those barriers and communicate the same way with an architect. I mean, being able to speak architecture says a lot. And so bringing my experience in 35 years in the design business to the table, helps to put our architectural partners at ease. They know they're dealing with somebody that's been there, done that, knows what it takes to really get good design done. And that in and of itself helps set the stage for successful design management. Now, I should say there are probably 4 or 5 others like me throughout the country within DPR that we've brought together, most of which are senior level architects with experience in certain market sectors and that sort of stuff, but they're all playing the same sort of role that I play. And I will get into exactly what this design management function really is, but specifically to our design management academy internally, it is something that we have been focusing on now for the last 3 or 4 years. we realized that the issues surrounding design management and really working on that functional integration with our design partners is a function that goes well beyond design build projects. It's literally on every single project we have. There's interface with designers to get the project right, whether it's get the model right, get the details right, or whatever. So there's regardless of the contract methodology, there's a continuous dialogue that needs to happen between designer and contractor. And so what we're trying to do with our academy is bring greater exposure to the functions of design management to a wider variety of our people internally, project engineers, project managers, project PXs, guys that don't necessarily have any exposure to design, but are interfacing with designers on a daily basis. So what we've created, I think, we're very excited about it because the content is really A+. It's graduate level communications in terms of the types of things that we're talking about. And I think what's really great about it is that we've developed this content literally internally, almost in a Wikipedia sort of way, where we've gotten information out there and had a lot of serious dialogue with a lot of different people in the firm to help us manage this content as we put it out there. So we're pretty excited about it. We've run now 3 classes through, and we continue to run 2 or 3 academy things per year. So it's great.
So let me jump in and just ask you quickly. You have the PE, the PMs, and the PXs. What's your objective for this academy for them? What do you want them to learn?
So most importantly, I think it's really making sure that these guys understand how to most effectively work with our architectural partners. Too often in our industry, we have a reputation, at least in the construction realm, of discounting the architect as being wrong, or it's always the architect's fault. The drawings aren't any good. They missed the schedule. These sorts of things have been prevalent in our industry for a long time. The first thing we try to put to rest is that attitude, and really educate our people as to exactly what it means to have to go through a design process. And we've heard it all before. It's not a linear process. It's an intuitive process that requires great iteration, and that iteration takes time, and great design does take time. So if we can learn that and appreciate it and understand it and allow time for it, it makes for much greater project teams and much greater projects in the end.
Do you cover anything about how they might approach things differently at different phases of the design process or construction process?
Yeah, we do. In fact, we start the program out really at the highest level of dialogue, really trying to educate, first of all, our folks about the the functions of our design partners. How do they do work? What motivates top design firms? How do they make money? How do they schedule projects? So that they have a basic understanding of the inner workings of a design firm, if you will. The next step is after we've gone through a process of making sure we understand why we might be selecting a partner for a particular project. Then we start focusing on the development of those high-performing teams. What are the things that we could implement to allow our team to function at the highest levels? And you're doing the same thing with your International Partnering Institute and structured partnering program that you have. So we try to educate our people on just simple tricks of the trade that allows us to get alignment on projects and really make sure people understand the specific direction we're trying to go on a job. And then all that data, then we have another module on decision making, the tools that we can use to help implement strategic decision making. And then we kind of drive all the way towards the use of technology in the integration business. And ultimately, we have a terrific module just on doing constructability reviews, which are really great, both from a technology perspective and also what to look for in a set of drawings that we go for.
Yeah, that sounds like a constructability review. I've been through several of projects where that didn't go so well. So
yeah,
that would be great.
So the whole purpose of this is to help us really work with our design partners early so that there's an understanding of expectations at each phase of the project. What kind of trade-offs do we need to have? What do the handoffs look like, right, between architects and engineers and our trade partners and that sort of stuff. So again, it's all about focusing the resources the right way and minimizing waste in the design process.
Yeah. Okay. So, why did you decide to create this design academy now?
Well, I'll tell you, one thing that became very, very apparent as we worked our way around the country is, first of all, we are a very large firm, and we needed to be able to mobilize resources much quicker than hiring one guy at a time. And honestly, the way a lot of our projects are structured in an integrated fashion, and you talk about this a lot in your teachings as well, where you've taken a project team and you perhaps have broken it into clusters, and those clusters are led by members of our contracting team, whether it's a PE or a PM leading some specific area of the project, whether it's site work or building scan or whatever. Just the function of their playing the role of cluster leader, they're playing a design management role. And so they need to have all the understandings that anybody in this position needs to have, starting with how to communicate with the architectural partners. So that's why we deployed it, so that we could get more people brought up to speed quicker, and we could make a bigger effect on the performance of the firm.
So you've had 3 academies now. So tell me a little bit about kind of your results. What are some of the lessons you've learned, and maybe I always believe in the collective wisdom of the people going through it too, maybe ways they've made it better, and what they're doing to better integrate design and construction.
Well, I certainly think that our emphasis and focus is really trying to get towards the concept of better and more predictable outcomes on projects. Also, sort of minimizing our risks that exist in the design process. There's a metric out there that we use that is quite telling, but all firms of our size have a significant level of fee erosion or write-downs that occur on projects because of problems for one reason or another. And there have been studies out there, ENR contributed as well, that are suggesting that 50% of contractors' fee erosions can be attributed to problems that occurred in the design phase, whether it's late design or drawings that required extensive RFIing or problem details that lead to one thing or another. And so putting our emphasis further up front in the project to really help us make sure we get the kind of drawings that we need to build great buildings, that just means that we're minimizing our risk. And again, if that means we're saving on fee erosion, then we win. There's a lot more to it. Obviously, success on projects is more than just money, but it's all about how do we mitigate the risks going forward by trying to get involved further up front.
Yeah, we've seen that too. In fact, I just interviewed his episode is going to be coming out here. The gentleman from Boimer, Henrik Court, and he was talking. This first ICS system that's been installed in the United States. He was talking about, and he was saying how most of the time, they don't get brought in the design phase. They don't get brought in the programming phase. They get brought in when the building's sort of already fully baked, and we have to fit the system in.
Right.
And he was talking about how they were able to actually design the system into the building, and that it's going to be the most efficient ICS system in the world. So similar opportunities, besides risk, opportunities, it seems, can also be afforded.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So what are the feedback you're...
And I have to say
keep going.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just going to say that I think that I think the results that we've had with our partners that have embraced and gone through this with us has been terrific. A little bit of resistance early on when you talk about design management and the architects don't actually understand what that means. Oh no, are you coming in and trying to take over the management of the design process? And it's really none of that. Our sole purpose is to make our partners' jobs easier from the design side.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'd say from our architectural partners, they've all been enormously supportive and encouraged by it, and it leads again to some pretty successful projects for us.
So in your design academy, are you including some of your design partners in this as well?
So we're just starting. It's funny you should ask. I have a gentleman from HKS who's the director of their PM services that's going to co-teach our module 1 about design firms fundamentals, so that we have a voice from the outside that is can either argue with the points that I try to make or actually smooth some of those curves out. So the answer is yes. We're starting to integrate more and more of our design partners into the overall curriculum.
That sounds,
which is great.
And for the people who've gone through, what kind of feedback have you gotten?
Obviously, they love it. It's a lot of work. The first class we went through, it was a 12-month grind. And we really put a lot of pressure on them to come out the back end. I think we've learned now that we've gotten the content fully developed that we're able to flip it much quicker. We can do this now in about 4.5 months. It's not so painful in terms of a time commitment for our people, but they come out the back end with a lot of knowledge. And of course, everything spears conversation. So we've got a pretty robust toolbox platform that allows our graduates to be able to refer back to information and grab a tool or a spreadsheet or wherever it is that we're using to get through each of these modules. So it's been great. And I have to say that I think I'm even more encouraged by the 3rd and 4th classes that have come through. These people are from all over the country with all over different kinds of backgrounds. But now that we've gotten to the core of this thing and the academy itself has gotten a reputation, we're clamoring to have people get in on the program. So we're pretty excited about it.
Awesome. So what do you see as the future of your design academy?
Well, as I said, as we continue to develop content and get new product to continue to improve what we've got, we have now taken it online. Most of the modules are achievable through e-learning, through our learning and development system here internally. And so what we're doing now is what we call a sort of reverse classroom program, where we put the content of a particular module out there and expect our people to actually go through it instead of being lectured at. And then when we get together once a month or twice a month, when we have a discussion on that particular topic, it's really more about revisiting the concepts of the topic. So it really helps reinforce what we're trying to teach rather than just forcing stuff down people's throat. So we're pretty excited about it. It's almost taking on a life of its own. I still have to be pretty heavily involved. And we've got a number of other captains around the country, each one that has taken responsibility for each of the modules. But we're getting to the point where it's almost self-sustaining, which is going to be great for us, so we can go on to other things.
That sounds wonderful. So one of the things I have a question too about is I'm hearing, and I know I interviewed some folks that were with designers, they're architects, and they're now really merged into a construction company. And so they're doing the design in-house. Do you kind of see that as a trend in the industry?
I do. And a lot of us are asking that question and investigating the outcomes. We have a task force internally that's investigating that right now. I can tell you that I do not think that we ever want to or believe we would be in a position to compete for design with our partners. That's not our mentality. I do think that there's room to improve the process on the production side. And if that means, again, integrating with our design partners or internally developing a team that can focus on production detailing and that sort of stuff. So much of our scope is either self-perform right now anyway, and we do a lot of VDC internally ourselves. So we're always doing the model coordination and clash detection and all that internally. So, I mean, we're already in some ways in a position of producing some stuff, but to actually put your stamp on it and get it out the door requires a separate sort of mentality. And I'm actually excited about seeing where that goes. It's going to be fun in the coming weeks and months for us.
That sounds exciting. It also brings to mind that so many of the designs these days, particularly in design build projects, the trade partners are so integral to the design. Mm-hmm. Do you foresee them being a part of this design academy as well, because they have so much interface?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, we've thought often about if we could find a way to streamline the information that we put out in the academy so that we could make it available to project teams. As the team comes together for a big job, we can just kind of all educate ourselves at the same time. We have brought in some of our other key trade partners to help develop some of the content and sit in on some of the module education. We actually had a great panel discussion in Orlando just last month. It was our kickoff for our third group, and we brought a panel together that included 3 of the top architects in Orlando, as well as one of our trade partners there to kind of be in front of our crowd and speak to the issues surrounding the future of the industry. And so it was really great, really great.
That's so cool. It's an exciting time in construction. There's no doubt about that. And I know DPR is known for their innovation. So tell us a little bit more about DPR, what you haven't already told us, and some of your innovations and things that you're doing or working on. That'd be awesome to hear about.
Well, yeah, I can tell you that internally, we've always been a firm that's focused on ever forward as one of our key core values. We actually have a team with representatives in each region that focuses purely on renovation. In fact, they're sponsoring in the next month or so internally what we call our Innovation Shark Tank. And we're casting a wide net to really scour the great ideas that exists in everyone's heads, from our superintendents to, our design managers, to kind of discuss how we can continue to develop new tools and processes to make us better. So I'm very excited about that. But we have initiatives in everything from VDC. We're still considered one of the foremost users of BIM and the collection and dissemination of data on projects. We have a new operation we call ViewOps, which is really great, where they've focused on taking the data that is assembled during the design and construction process and making sure that it's appropriately documented so it's useful as we turn over the models and drawings and other things to an end user for facilities management. So they're kind of focusing on the back end of jobs. Of course, we now implemented another sister firm we call DBC, Digital Building Components, which focuses on the front end of projects in the use of prefabrication. We've got about 5 major student housing jobs going on throughout the country that are completely prefabricated, literally from the ground up, with product that we're developing ourselves. So, and then I can go on and on and on about the great innovations that are happening here. And it's just exciting for a firm like ours to continue to invest in these things. Of course, one of my favorite too is the group we have in India, Pune, India. We have about 300 people now in Pune that work for DPR. It's a group we call V-Construct. And they started out just being a BIM resource for us, and it become literally a full service organization that does everything from admin tasks on projects to they're actually going to start doing, sets of drawings for us as we start to produce stuff. We're very excited about it.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff.
That is very exciting. Mm-hmm. I think it's awesome. The DBC sounds really interesting too, because prefab is sort of blowing up right now in the industry. So that's very exciting.
What makes us unique too, and I should put this out to your audience, is that we're one of the few prefabricated building component manufacturers that's building out of steel. We've got a lot of competitors that are out there saying that, hey, they're doing this, they're building modules, and you know many of those names, but they're all
Mhm.
still building out of wood. We're one of only a few that is actually producing full-blown cold rolled steel solutions at this point. It's really
That's
great.
exciting. We'll have to see what happens over the next 5 to 10 years. It's going to be an interesting ball game, so to speak.
It will, no doubt.
So I'm sure along your path of working on many projects and initiatives, not everything has always gone exactly as you had hoped for. Tell us about your biggest challenge that you've ever faced in your career. Take us back to that worst moment and let us see what that was like for you.
Well, going back through my career, whether it's in design or construction, anytime you have a situation where you end up with a client that's unsatisfied for whatever reason, obviously that leaves a bitter taste in your mouth, kind of compromises what would be a positive attitude on jobs. But I have to say that one of the most disappointing activities that ever occurred was a job recently here at DPR. It might have been 3 or 4 years ago. It was an IPD job. I'm not going to say the client's name, but we had assembled a big room that included 140 of the smartest guys I've ever seen. They were just from our trade partners in mechanical and electrical, all the way through the architectural team to the members of the DPR team. It was an absolute A plus team, and we were going full tilt, making a lot of really great decisions, and project was coming together, and it was just magnificent. But only one problem, and we had a client that could not make decisions. You've heard us talk over and over again about the importance of effective and timely decision making, but no matter what we tried, we just failed in getting this client to engage, and it just ground the entire project to a halt. And unfortunately, it literally came to a day where the whole project blew up just simply because the client couldn't get out of his own way. It was extremely disappointing because, I mean, to a day, if you ask any one of those players that was in that room, literally to a man, they would tell you that was the best team we'd ever assembled. And unfortunately, we weren't allowed to build anything.
Isn't that just such an important lesson learned for all of us?
Yeah.
That it really isn't about the kind of people you have exactly. It isn't exactly about what you're building. It isn't exactly about anything other than how the team comes together, including the owner, to actually make the decisions that allows
Yeah.
you to move forward and get momentum.
Yeah. And all the more reason, like we try to teach in our academy and our decision making module, that we need to be able to sit down with all the key stakeholders. And of course, at SFO, you've spoken with a lot of the players there. They have a great program to manage their stakeholder engagement. But if we need to be able to get commitment from every key stakeholder as to here's the process by which we're going to make decisions. Everybody has to sign up to it. Everybody needs to buy off on it. And it needs to be one of the first things discussed in projects. Because otherwise you could find yourself 2 years later and with nothing to show for it.
Yes, and you're not the only person who's ever had those kind of projects.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
So, with that in mind, what's the very best
Mm-hmm.
advice you've ever gotten in your career?
I had somebody when I first started in this business. I went to work for a firm in San Francisco called EPR, Environmental Planning and Research. And those of your audience that have been around long enough will recognize EPR. They were perhaps the University of Architecture, if you will, here in San Francisco. They were a firm through which many of the great architects that are here in the city actually made their way. Just like every other great firm, they were acquired, chewed up, and spit out. But at the end of the day, some really great firms came out of that experience, including firms like Studios and IA and John Holy Associates, and a whole slew of really great firms came out of that. But I'll never forget that the first guy that hired me out of college, his name is Richard Pollack. He's another pretty famous name here in the Bay Area circles. who said, look, if your boss ever asks you out for a drink, you go. And I never forgot that. And sure enough, the best conversations I'd ever had with bosses and guys that I didn't think that I would ever be able to have intimate conversations with occurred off hours where we were not in the work environment. And to me, that made the most sense in the world. And I learned more about the business, working offline with these great professionals than I ever did internally. That was my greatest advice.
That's awesome. And we always ask everyone to share a resource, really a gift for the listeners, something that you have found effective, essential, important for you. It could be a book, an article, link, podcast. What would you have to share?
So I do listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm a big fan. I think it's an awesome way to learn, when you're commuting and doing things otherwise useless. But there's a lot on the building trades out there right now. Of course, the DBIA has their own podcast, and there's another one out there called The Built Revolution that was put together by a Continuing Advisory Group. That's another kind of fun one, just like yours is a great one too. So I think it's fun, and I really love I'd like to see more podcasts that focus on design. And there'll be several of those out there. If I was to recommend a book to this audience, though, I'd have to point you to a book that we published last year. DPR was actually several authors, Dean Reed and Howard Ashcraft and a bunch of other guys wrote this book called Integrating Design Services that really tells the story of how all this is supposed to work and the success stories of projects that have really gone well in the IPD environment. So that's a book published by Wiley, and I would recommend everybody that's in this business get a hold of it because it's a virtual textbook now on it. And
we'll put a link to that on our website. I'm assuming it's in Amazon since it's from Wiley has it. And we'll also put a link to the DBIA podcast and the Built Revolution podcast as well.
And maybe someday you can put a link to my podcast, which is called Beyond the Drawing Board.
That would be great.
And I'd like you to be a guest on that, Sue. I would like to have you come in and talk with us if you can.
I would love that. You know that. I'll be there with bells
Perfect. On. We'll do it. All of us in the podcast business all have to be on each other's shows.
That's right. Well, yeah, construction folk have to stay together. Yep. So how can Construction Nation get a hold of you?
I think, everyone knows how to find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best bet. And I am pretty responsive. When I get something from somebody, I'm pretty good about reaching back and getting a hold of them.
And I will put a link to your LinkedIn profile on the show notes too.
Yeah, that's great. Perfect.
So what is your parting advice for all of us? Something that maybe we could start doing tomorrow to help making sure that we are doing a better job of linking design and construction or training our people?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that I leave my audience with in our program, we have homework and pre-work and other things associated with the academy. The only homework I left my people with after the first module, which was, again, Design Firm Fundamentals, is find time to take that architect out for lunch. And I try to emphasize that because it's surprising. And I've gotten some terrific feedback. Our guys might not have ever thought of socializing with our partners, but just going to lunch, learning what has motivated these individuals to be professionals in the design business, understanding their background and what motivates them, it really changes people's attitude around the world, around a project, and it makes for things going much, much better if you can get to know people on a personal basis and develop that relationship that lasts forever. I mean, guys that I worked with on some of the first jobs I ever did in the city are still colleagues, and many of them are actually principals or running not only design firms, but actually running their facilities directors at some of the big tech firms in the Valley now. So never burn a bridge and always make a friend.
Well, I always figure you have two choices. You make an enemy or a friend. It's a lot better to have friends.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
I want to thank you so much, Greg, for joining us on Construction Dream Team. It's so great for everyone to be able to learn what you're doing, what you're thinking, and hopefully you'll come back later and share some more of what's happening and some of the innovations. We want to know what happens on the Shark Tank episode there you got going.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. But Sue, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And you've done a great thing with this podcast, and I wish you great success.
Well, thank you so much. And Construction Nation, remember, dream teams don't just happen. They're built one step at a time. And Greg has really helped us today to maybe have some insights on what we need to do and look at design differently and the interface between design and construction and really work at it, not just expect to throw it over the fence and magic to happen. And, every one of our guests has shared what they believe is their very best resource for you. And we have put all that together on one page at constructiondreamteam.com/resources. So they're all there. Everything that anyone has ever shared and anything anyone will share is there for you, easily accessible. And we also made a deal with Audible. So if you're not a member of Audible and you want to get one of the books that has been recommended on Audible, if you click on the link on the website for that book, it will take you to Audible and you get a free book for that. So check out the resources page. There's some awesome things on there. And just keep listening. And remember that we drop Construction Dream Team every Monday morning at 4 a.m. Pacific time. So please join me next week when I will interview another industry leader or expert about the people side of construction, so you can learn how to create your construction dream team. Thanks, Greg, so much.
Thank you, Sue. Appreciate it. We'll talk again.
And thank you, everyone, for joining me today. I'll catch you next time.